New jailhouse calls reveal what convicted killer Brooks Houck is worried about now. Houck was found guilty of murdering his ex-girlfriend Crystal Rogers back in July. The 35-year-old mother of 5 children disappeared in 2015, and her body has never been found. Houck and Rogers share a son. In just released jail phone calls, Houck speaks to his family about selling off his assets before Rogers' family can take him to court.
See if he's got some investors that want to buy some stuff, and and if he does, we can try to put some groups of stuff together. All the stuff down there at the barn, that equipment, the dump trucks and those trailers and that backhoe and that SkyTrack. Alex can look all that stuff up on YouTube or on things. He knows how to run the SkyTrack anyways, but he can look that stuff up, see what that stuff's worth. And I'd like to go ahead and sell that. That farm's nothing's owed on that. I don't know if that'll be protected in the civil suit, but in the next year or something going through the court system, they're going to take everything that I've got.
Okay, now there's more. Brooks Houck reportedly owns, wait for it, some 83 properties worth $8.5 million. And there's more. The judge who presided over the 10-day-long trial where he was convicted of murdering Crystal Rogers had ordered him not to transfer any property until at least after an evidentiary hearing set for October 8th. Well, we know we're not there now. And so last week, after transcripts of these jail phone calls were brought to the court's attention, the court issued a temporary injunction to prohibit Mr. Houck from selling any of his property or any of his businesses. Apparently, it was obvious to the court he was trying to shield his assets to avoid payment in a wrongful death lawsuit, should he be found liable in such a suit. Okay, let's talk about this. Somebody hiding assets? My gosh, let's bring in celebrity attorney Randy Kessler. Randy, shocking that this guy would want to do this, isn't it? What do you think? Quick on the court, though, wasn't it, to somebody obviously flagged that in the jail and brought it to the judge's attention. Your thoughts?
Right. Well, first of all, you almost feel for the guy, right? If you give people the benefit of the doubt, and if he thinks he's innocent, he's trying to protect his family. He's trying to protect the wealth they have, and you sort of don't blame him. I've already lost my life. I've lost my freedom. I've lost everything. At least I want my family to have what I've worked for, and I don't want it to go to somebody else who I didn't hurt, if that's what he's feeling. But yes, you're absolutely right, Julie. Someone good to monitor the calls and say, let's not, have a fictitious trial on the civil damages and get a big verdict that says he owes all this money for the pain and suffering that he inflicted and not be able to collect it. There's always two sides to a civil case, to a personal injury case. One is liability, are you responsible for it? And two is, what are the damages? Well, the third thing we don't talk about is collectability. We hear a lot about this $1 million case or $1 billion case. When it's against a big motor company, there's deep pockets. When it's against someone who's in jail, you got to make sure some of those pockets are still filled with some cash to make it worth pursuing. So quick on their feet is absolutely the right way to put it. They're protecting the possible recovery for a civil case.
A really helpful analysis you're giving us, Randy. Thank you. You brought up family, how you could see where this defendant's intention might have been, I want to have something for my family. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because I wanted to ask you about this son in particular that he shares with Crystal Rogers. And my understanding, this is the youngest of her 5 children that she has. She has other children who do not belong to Mr. Houck. I kept thinking about how, is there some mechanism here where if there is property or something to be sold off, or let's just say this guy did something and then the court catches him, where they could take the money and make sure it's put in trust for this baby, who's going to be growing up now without mom and without dad. I just keep thinking about how, is there anything, because the child belongs to Crystal, that you think we could see cropping up in this civil suit? Her family obviously have an interest in taking care of the child. Anything we could expect or look for, Randy?
Yes, but as the public probably thinks, and I get these questions a lot, why doesn't the court do something? Why doesn't the court protect the children? The child needs an advocate, right? Somebody's got to be hired. Hopefully the court appoints somebody or family hires somebody whose goal is to protect the child's future. And if that happens, then certainly they can carve out and make a claim for some part of the estate, some part of the assets. But it's not something the court's just going to do on its own in the middle of a civil case where somebody's suing him for the damages and they say, by the way, there's this innocent child, let's take some of the money. There's got to be an advocate, and hopefully there will be one appointed by the court, or the family members will step up and say, this child needs rights protected. But yes, it is an option. And, you know, it's sort of interesting because had he died, then we'd be in probate court. It'd be how do you distribute his assets? Had he been given the death penalty and he was dead, then how do you distribute the assets? But he's still alive, so technically they're still his assets. And how do you take them from him? Well, you sue him for civil damages and then you collect, or you ask the state to help the child.
A really, really excellent analysis from you, as per usual, Randy Kessler. That child does need an advocate. You're absolutely right. Randy, you've got cases to win. We got to let you get off to court. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
And today on the docket, co-defendant Stephen Lawson. Remember, he's one of Brooks Houck's 2 co-defendants. He's going to be in court today to be sentenced, and we don't have any word whether Crystal Rogers' family will be there, but we're monitoring the hearing. It starts up today at 4 p.m. Eastern.